Welcome, and in today's video we're going to be talking about lining with a round shader. And I'm going to talk about the difference between lining with a round liner and a round shader. We're going to use fake skin to do it, so if you guys are ready for this, then let's go. So we're talking about lining with a round shader. So before we get into anything, I do want to show you guys, I built these a while back for another video we made, and these are merely used as examples. So if you look at the tip of this would be the idea of a 7 liner. But if you look at these needles, they're brought in, well, these pencils, they're brought in to a point. There's 7 of them. And that's how a liner essentially works. If you were to zoom way in on them, they might be a little closer to that. But that's how a liner needle would look. In comparison to a round shader, as you can see, they're sent straight down. There's a bit more space in between them. There's still 7, but this 7 is a bit more spaced out than this 7. So again, round liner pulled together at the tip, round shader pretty much straight down. They're all tight together, but at the end they're spread out a little bit. So with that out of the way, again, liner, shader, we're going to talk about the difference between lining with each one. So there might come those times where you really need to line with a round shader. Sometimes the line work is just really big and you might not have the exact liner you want for that, but you have a round shader, and with that round shader you can get the similar effect you could with a larger liner. Some of the downfalls are the line won't be as crisp as you're used to using a round liner, because again, those needles are pulled tighter together and that line is crisper. Since they're spread out a little bit more, that line's going to be a little hazy at times occasionally. So you can go back and clean that up, or you just live with it. It depends on the tattoo and what it is you're doing. I have the CNC Q2, and we're going to start by loading this up with a standard 9 round liner. It's not a long taper. It's none of that stuff. We're just going to load it up with a standard Cheyenne 9 round liner, so we can get a look at that and how that goes into the fake skin, and then we'll bust out a 9 round shader and run that right next to it so you can see next to each other exactly what they're supposed to look like. Okay, I got the 9 round liner loaded up. I'm gonna dip in some ink and we're gonna run a line. And here we go. So there you have it. That's one line using a 9 round liner. Now I'm running at 8.1 volts and my hand is moving, well, as fast as you saw it move. I'll run that one more time again with 9 round liner, 8.1 volts, because when we get to the shader, things will change, so I want you to understand. So again, we're gonna lay a little bit more of that ointment down, make sure we got some ink in our tube. So as I said, there's another line. You saw how quick I was moving. Again, I say this a lot, but fake skin is tougher than real skin. So if you're running the same voltage you would on real skin and you come to fake skin, you're gonna have to slow your hand down a little bit because it's not penetrating quite the same, or you can up your voltage a little bit to match your hand speed. So with that said, now I'm gonna take this out and we're gonna load up a 9 round shader. It's also Cheyenne. I tend to push my needles out a little bit further when I'm running with a round shader just because it's a little bit more bounce. What I mean by that is if we take these pencils again, for instance, this comes to a bit more of a point, so it has an easier time penetrating the skin, and the smaller the needle, the easier it is to penetrate. Now when you're referring to a bit larger, again, same number of needles, but this has a bigger displacement. So when it hits the skin, you're gonna need a little bit more protrusion of the needles from your tube, and you're also gonna need to speed your machine up a little bit because, well, it's pushing bigger needles, it's pushing more needles, it needs a little bit more help. I'm gonna try it at 9 volts on this fake skin and see how that feels. If it's too fast, we'll slow it down. If it's not fast enough, we'll speed it up, but you understand what's happening. So again, even on fake skin, you wanna kinda stretch it. You'll probably be able to see in this video how much things are vibrating. Okay, wipe it off. So that is pretty much the difference. You can see right there, this is a line ran with a 9-round liner right next to a 9-round shader. It's not this huge, overwhelming, crazy amount of difference, but it is definitely a difference. And of course you can get these in much larger. Again, this is a 9-round shader. So I'm gonna run one more right next to it so you can see that again. And I say again, we get more vibration the bigger the needle is, so you wanna have your hands on the fake skin, or if you're on real skin, really doing your best to minimize those vibrations. So I had the machine running at 9 volts. My needles are thrown out this far. And we're gonna do that again. So there it is, right next to a 9-round liner, 9-round shader. It does get a little hazy on one side here and there, but as a whole, I think it's a really good alternative. Round shaders are great because you can line like this with it. Then you can go ahead and start shading as you go. You can color pack with it. Round shaders are quite versatile. And it took me a while to realize that I could line with one of these. And it took me a little while to figure out that, again, I need to up my voltage and probably slow my hand down a little bit in order to get a good saturation in the skin. But if you want to line this thick and your 9-round liner, 7-round liner, whatever just wasn't doing it, and you don't have like a 13-round liner to give you something like this, then you can bust out that 9-round shader and run a line, and it's going to give that little bit more thickness that you're looking for. And obviously, I say again, the larger the round shader you use, the larger the line will be. So I want to show you this real quick. In here, loaded, I have a 14-round shader, long taper. That makes a difference. But I want to show you how the angle of your hand makes a huge difference. So I'm going to tattoo a line right here, just running straight down. And as you can see, that's not a very thick line. It's quite thin actually for a 14-round shader. What works best for me is if you can get an angle on your machine. A lot of times coming at yourself is a decent way to do it. Hold your machine like this on there and run this way, keeping your hand consistent so that your line stays consistent. So I'm going to attempt to show you that right now, again, next to that one. If you're running the needles like this, and you're starting here, and you're coming down this way, you have the full force of this portion, but this portion is not getting a full saturation, which is giving you that like blurry kind of look on one side. It's not super obvious, but it is there. It's minimal. It depends on how you run your round shaders. So when you run a needle like this, and you're running forward, or you run it like this, and you're running backwards down the line, it's getting the same amount of saturation, even though maybe if you're running this way, the fronts aren't quite stabbing in as much, but the back and the sides are equal, so you're gonna get a consistently thick line. So that's pretty much how to line with a round shader, the differences, the hand positions. So I hope that maybe through this, you get a little bit of understanding of how round shaders work. They're quite versatile. Again, use them for lining, use them for shading, but please practice with them. Please play around with some fake skin for a while, because while simple, they do take a little bit of messing around to get comfortable with, to figure out how to hold your hand, how they work, what needles to use for what. The best way to do this kind of stuff is to practice. Get some needles, get some fake skin, set yourself up, and get comfortable and familiar with your needles and how to use them, and other ways to use them that maybe aren't taught to you, but you just kind of figure out. And that's how this all works. Everybody's just figuring stuff out. And for me, I'm just sharing with you guys what little I know about this industry. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the bell to get notifications when we post, when we go live, or anything like that. Until next time, guys, peace.